We don't fall out of love. More often, we fall out of safety. We begin to question, to doubt, to brace ourselves for disappointment instead of leaning into trust. And the moment love no longer feels safe, we stop showing up as our whole selves. We start protecting instead of connecting. But here's the truth. Love can feel safe again. And it doesn't require perfection. It doesn't demand that we erase the past. It simply asks for presence, for intention, and for courage. Safety in love doesn't come from never making mistakes. It comes from the willingness to repair them. Trust is not about getting it right every time. It's about taking responsibility when we get it wrong. That's the first step. Not more promises, but more accountability. Not more charm, but more truth. We talk a lot about being strong in relationships. But strength isn't guarding your heart, it's letting someone see it. Vulnerability is how we build intimacy. And when you open yourself, when you say, this is who I really am, fears, scars, hopes, all of it, you give love the room to breathe again. We live in a world that often glorifies perfection. We see curated versions of people's lives on social media, we hear stories of seemingly flawless relationships, and we quietly tell ourselves that if we could just be better, more attractive, more successful, more emotionally composed, then love would feel safer. But that's not how safety in love works. Safety doesn't come from being perfect, it comes from being trustworthy, from being someone whose words and actions align, from being consistent, present, and honest, even when it's uncomfortable. So many of us carry a fear of not being enough. We think that if we mess up, say the wrong thing, or show our flaws, the people we care about will leave. So we put on masks. We perform. We try to manage impressions instead of building connection. But love that is built on performance is fragile. It breaks the moment we can't keep up the act. What love truly needs, what makes it feel safe, is trust. Trust is not about never making mistakes. Trust is about how we respond after we make them. Can we admit when we've hurt someone? Can we take ownership instead of making excuses? Can we show that we're learning, evolving, and willing to do better, not just for ourselves, but for the relationship? These are the behaviors that build emotional safety. When we make someone feel like they don't have to constantly be on guard, when we show up in a way that's dependable and real, we create a foundation that love can actually rest on. That foundation doesn't come from grand romantic gestures or perfectly timed words. It comes from being the same person in private as we are in public. It comes from being a safe place, not because we always know what to do, but because we're willing to be accountable when we get it wrong. And the thing about trust is it's not built all at once. It's built moment by moment. It's built when we listen without judgment, when we remember what matters to someone, when we follow through on what we said we would do, when we tell the truth even when it would be easier to stay silent. Every small, honest action becomes a brick in the foundation of safety. There's a kind of freedom that comes when someone knows they can be fully themselves and still be loved. That freedom allows love to deepen, to grow, to thrive, but none of that is possible if we're walking on eggshells, fearing that love will only last as long as we stay perfect. Love doesn't ask us to be flawless, it asks us to be real. Of course, this doesn't mean we ignore toxic behavior or stop trying to grow. Being trustworthy isn't about being passive, it's about being intentional. It's about recognizing that safety and love is something we co-create. It requires us to be emotionally aware, to be willing to repair, and to show up with humility. In the end, safety and love comes down to this. Can I trust you to be who you say you are? Not just when things are easy, but when they're hard. Can I trust you to hold space for my humanity as I hold space for yours? That's what makes love feel safe again. Not perfection, but trust, earned through presence, patience, and the quiet courage to keep showing up. We often think of strength as being unshakable, composed, always in control. We associate it with having the answers, not showing weakness, and pushing through pain without flinching. But when it comes to love, that definition of strength doesn't hold. Because real strength, the kind that builds intimacy, trust, and emotional safety, doesn't come from hiding our feelings. It comes from revealing them. Vulnerability, though often misunderstood, is the highest form of strength. To be vulnerable means to show up as you are, without the armor. It means sharing your fears, your hopes, your past wounds, and your uncertain dreams. It means letting someone see the parts of you that you're still trying to accept yourself. That takes far more courage than pretending you have it all together, because pretending is easy. Pretending keeps people at a safe distance, but vulnerability that invites connection. It says, this is the real me, will you still stay? It's terrifying. And that's why it's so powerful. Vulnerability isn't about oversharing or being emotionally reckless. It's about authenticity. It's about choosing to be honest in the moments where it would be easier to stay guarded. When we tell someone, I'm scared, I don't know, or that hurt me, we're taking an emotional risk. We're putting our heart in someone else's hands without a guarantee of how they'll respond. That's not weakness. That's bravery. And here's the irony. The very thing we think will drive people away is often what brings them closer. When you're real with someone, when you let them see what's beneath the surface, you give them permission to do the same. Vulnerability creates space for mutual understanding. It opens the door for empathy. And in relationships, empathy is everything. You can't truly love someone you don't understand, and you can't be understood if you're always hiding. Many people avoid vulnerability because they've been hurt before. Maybe they opened up in the past and were rejected, mocked, or betrayed. That pain teaches us to build walls. But walls don't just keep others out. They trap us inside. We think we're protecting ourselves, but really we're just disconnecting. True love can't reach us through the armor. It can only grow in places where we've allowed ourselves to be seen. In strong, healthy relationships, vulnerability is not only allowed, it's welcome. It becomes the bridge between two people. When one person is brave enough to be open, it sets the tone, it signals safety. It tells the other person, you don't have to perform here. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to be real. That level of emotional transparency builds deep connection. Connection that surface level strength can't match. Being vulnerable also means being honest about what you need. So many people suffer in silence because they think asking for reassurance or expressing emotional needs makes them needy or weak. But expressing needs isn't weakness. It's clarity. It's saying, this is what helps me feel loved. This is what helps me feel secure. And when that's communicated with humility and openness, it strengthens the relationship. There's a quiet, grounded confidence that comes from vulnerability. It says, I know who I am. I know I'm not perfect, and I'm not afraid for you to see me as I really am. That kind of confidence can't be faked. It's built from the inside out. So if you want to be strong in love, really strong, stop hiding, start showing. Be honest about what hurts, what heals, and what you hope for. That's how real connection is born. Vulnerability isn't the thing to fear. It's the very thing that makes love feel real, human, and safe again. One of the most damaging habits we bring into relationships is the belief that communication is a battleground. Something we do to win, to defend, or to prove a point. But real communication isn't about winning. It's about understanding. And when love starts to feel unsafe, it's almost always because that understanding has been replaced by defensiveness, ego, or silence. We're taught to argue our case, to make our voice heard, to assert our opinion. And while there's value in being clear and direct, communication in love is not a debate, it's a dialogue. It's not about being right, it's about being connected. The goal is not to walk away with a victory, but to walk away with a deeper understanding of each other. When someone we love is upset, our first instinct is often to explain, justify, or correct. We want to fix it, we want to defend our intentions. But in doing so, we miss the most important thing, the opportunity to listen. Real listening, the kind that builds safety and trust, requires us to set our ego aside. It asks us to pause our urge to respond and instead ask, what are they really trying to tell me? So often, people don't need us to fix their feelings, they just need us to feel with them. To say, I hear you, I get why that hurt, I can see why you felt that way. That kind of response doesn't weaken your position, it strengthens the relationship. Because understanding doesn't mean agreeing with everything. It means showing the other person that their emotions matter to you, that their perspective is valid, and that you're here to understand, not overpower. Miscommunication happens when both people are trying to be heard, but neither is trying to hear. We talk louder, repeat ourselves, and dig deeper into our positions, and the more we do that, the more we move away from connection and toward conflict. The irony is the moment we shift from trying to win to trying to understand, the tension begins to dissolve. People soften when they feel seen. It takes maturity to say, help me understand what you're feeling. It takes courage to say, I didn't realize that's how it came across. And it takes humility to admit, I could have handled that better. These simple acknowledgments can shift the entire energy of a conversation. Because love doesn't need you to be perfect in how you communicate. It just needs you to be present, open, and willing. We also need to understand that communication isn't just about words, it's about tone, body language, timing, and energy. Saying the right thing with the wrong tone can be just as harmful as saying nothing at all. Communication that creates safety is gentle, patient, and curious. It doesn't interrupt, it doesn't rush, it invites. And sometimes communicating to understand means saying nothing at all, just holding space, sitting with someone in silence, letting them feel what they feel without trying to pull them out of it. That too is a form of deep listening. When we commit to communicating to understand, not to win, we change the entire dynamic of our relationships. We move from power struggles to mutual respect. We move from distance to closeness. We stop trying to win arguments and start trying to win each other's trust. So the next time you find yourself in conflict, ask yourself, am I listening to respond or listening to understand? Because only one of those paths leads back to safety, connection, and love. And in the end, love doesn't care who is right. It only cares that you stayed open, stayed kind, and stayed close. In relationships, it's not always the big gestures or the dramatic declarations of love that matter most. What truly makes love feel safe and secure is consistency. It's the quiet, steady repetition of care, honesty, and presence that builds trust over time. Consistency creates calm. It gives love a rhythm that we can rely on. A sense of predictability that lets us exhale and settle into the relationship with peace instead of anxiety. Think about how much stress comes from not knowing where you stand with someone. One day they're warm and affectionate, the next they're distant. One week they're all in, the next they're pulling away. That emotional unpredictability creates chaos. It keeps people walking on eggshells, overthinking every word, replaying every interaction, trying to decode whether they're safe or about to be abandoned. When someone is consistent, it tells you, you don't have to guess. You don't have to chase clarity or beg for stability. You can relax into the connection because it's not going to change with the weather. That kind of emotional consistency is more powerful than chemistry. It builds a foundation that love can grow on. Consistency doesn't mean perfection. It doesn't mean you never have a bad day or that you always say the right thing. It means that even when you falter, you show up again. You repair. You keep choosing the relationship. It means your presence is not conditional on things always being easy or convenient. When your partner knows that you'll show up in the hard moments just like you do in the happy ones, it creates emotional safety. It's easy to say the right things once or twice. It's easy to make promises. But what matters is what happens after the words are spoken. Do your actions align with them? Do you follow through? Do you keep showing up even when no one is watching or applauding? That's where real trust is built, in the consistency of character. Love becomes calm when it becomes dependable. When you say, I'm here, and prove it over and over again. When your partner doesn't have to question your intentions because your behavior speaks louder than your words. It's in the morning check-ins, the thoughtful gestures, the effort to stay emotionally available even when life is busy. These aren't small things. These are the heartbeat of lasting love. People often underestimate the power of emotional routines. Little ways of being that communicate, you matter to me. A hug when they walk in the door, a simple how was your day, a note on the fridge. These acts, done consistently, create emotional grounding. They say, you're safe here. This is steady. This is home. Without consistency, love becomes a roller coaster. High highs, low lows, and no sense of when the next drop is coming. That emotional instability wears people down. It creates fear and insecurity. But with consistency, love becomes a shelter, a place where people can rest, recharge, and be fully themselves without fear of emotional whiplash. In the end, love doesn't need grand performances. It needs presence. It needs patterns of respect, honesty, and care repeated daily. That's how you earn trust. That's how you keep hearts open. Because when someone knows they can count on you, not just today, but every day, they stop bracing for impact and start leaning into love. And in that space where consistency creates calm, love can finally become what it was meant to be, safe, steady, and strong. Forgiveness is one of the most misunderstood parts of love. People often think it means pretending nothing happened, acting like the hurt didn't exist, or sweeping pain under the rug for the sake of peace. But true forgiveness is not forgetting. It's not erasing the past. It's the active, intentional choice to move forward together with a renewed commitment to grow, repair, and rebuild trust. When someone hurts us, especially someone we love, it shakes the foundation of safety. It brings questions, doubt, and sometimes deep emotional wounds. Forgiveness doesn't mean those feelings vanish. It doesn't require us to minimize our pain or silence our voice. What it does mean is that we choose healing over punishment. That we value connection more than being right. That we're willing to see the other person not just through the lens of their mistake, but through the lens of their humanity. Forgiveness is not passive. It's not something that just happens with time. It takes effort. It takes courage. Because holding on to pain can feel like power. It can feel like control. Letting go feels risky. What if they do it again? What if I open my heart only to be hurt once more? These fears are valid. And yet, the alternative, holding on to resentment, keeps us stuck in the past. Forgiveness, when done consciously, is a release. Not a denial of the wound, but a decision to no longer let that wound define the relationship. To forgive doesn't mean we ignore accountability. In fact, forgiveness and accountability go hand in hand. The path to healing often starts with acknowledgement. When the person who caused harm takes responsibility, expresses remorse, and shows through action that they are committed to change. Forgiveness becomes possible when we see that the pain wasn't dismissed and the love wasn't taken for granted. Forgiveness also requires boundaries. Moving forward doesn't mean returning to the exact same dynamic. Sometimes it means setting new expectations, creating more transparency, or shifting the way we engage with each other. That's not bitterness. That's wisdom. It's saying, I still choose you, but I'm choosing us in a way that protects both of our well-being. Forgiveness creates a new chapter, not a copy of the last one. One of the most beautiful things about forgiveness is that it reclaims the future. It allows love to breathe again. It takes the power away from the mistake and gives it back to the relationship. It says, we're not going to let this break us. We're going to learn from it. We're going to build something stronger because of it. That's a powerful stance. It transforms pain into purpose. Of course, not every relationship can or should continue after betrayal. But in the relationships that are worth fighting for, forgiveness is the bridge. It's the moment when we say, I still believe in you. I still believe in us. And those words, when backed by consistent effort and empathy, can rebuild even what once felt broken. Forgiveness isn't easy. It's not quick. It often requires revisiting the pain more than once. But over time, if both people are willing, it creates something deeper than before. It creates love that has been tested and has survived, love that has been wounded and still chooses to reach for the other person. That's real love. Not perfect love, but love that endures. So no, forgiveness is not forgetting, it's remembering and still choosing to move forward. Not alone, not bitter, but together, with open eyes and a stronger heart. Safety in love isn't something you establish once and then move on from. It's something you build every single day in small, often quiet ways. It's not just the big promises or grand declarations that make someone feel emotionally safe. It's the consistent, everyday actions that whisper, I'm here, I see you. These small acts of care are the foundation of trust. And trust is the heartbeat of any relationship that feels secure. Many people wait for major milestones to prove their love. A big anniversary surprise, a heartfelt apology after a fight, or a sudden burst of affection after a period of distance. But the truth is, emotional safety isn't created in those moments alone. It's created in the moments in between. When no one's watching, when there's nothing to gain, and when the world is moving fast, but you still choose to pause and show up for each other. It's in the way you say good morning, the way you check in after a long day, the way you remember the little details they mention in passing. It's making their coffee the way they like it, offering your full attention when they're speaking or reaching for their hand in silence. These may seem like small things, but they add up. They become a language of love, one that says, you matter to me. You're safe here. Safety isn't just about protection from harm, it's about freedom from fear. When someone feels emotionally safe, they're not afraid to speak their truth. They're not walking on eggshells. They know that if they bring up something vulnerable, they won't be met with criticism or distance, but with curiosity and care. That safety is built not through intensity, but through consistency. And here's the thing, these small acts aren't about perfection. You don't have to always get it right. You just have to keep showing up, to keep trying. To notice when your partner is struggling and ask, what do you need right now? Or when you've said something harsh, to stop and say, that came out wrong. I'm sorry, let me try again. These moments don't just repair, they reinforce. They say, even when we mess up, We're still a team. Small acts of care are also proactive. They're not just about damage control after conflict. They're about planting seeds of love before trouble even starts. They keep the emotional bank account full, so when hard days come, and they will, you're not starting from empty. You've already created a culture of kindness and attentiveness that can carry you through the storm. This kind of safety also comes from being predictable in the best way. Not boring, but dependable. When someone knows they can count on you, when your words match your actions, when you say what you mean and follow through, it lowers anxiety. It creates emotional calm. It allows your partner to exhale and stop bracing for disappointment. People think they need to do something extraordinary to prove their love, but the most extraordinary thing you can do is make someone feel consistently seen, heard, and valued. That's what people remember. Not just the roses or the vacations, but how you made them feel on an ordinary Tuesday, how you stood by them when they were quiet, how you noticed when they needed comfort without them having to ask. Love that feels safe is not loud, it's steady. It's built brick by brick through presence, empathy, and care. And the beautiful part is, anyone can do this. You don't need a perfect past or all the answers. You just need the willingness to love intentionally, to show up with your whole heart, and to keep choosing the relationship in the smallest of ways, every single day. That's how safety is built. Not in one sweeping gesture, but in the quiet, patient rhythm of love that chooses to care again and again.